Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Coach Maddox. How are we doing? I'm good. So for anyone who has perhaps not heard of you or what you do, if you give us a quick background on how you got into S&C and where you're currently at.
I'm the associate director of football sports performance at USC for football obviously. I came here from K State, so this is going into my second year at USC. Prior to that, I was an assistant strength coach at K State under our director, Coach Tremaine Carroll. Prior to that, I was a director of strength and conditioning at Valdosta State, which is a D2 down in Georgia, for about 4 years. And prior to that, I was the head strength coach at Alcorn State for 4 years.
Nice. With sort of your role and how the industry is currently going, what's something that is really firing you up about being in this industry and working with the athletes that you have? Here's a quick word from our sponsor, TeamBuildr. I've personally been using TeamBuildr since 2022, and it's genuinely changed how I run primitive athletics. Writing programs, delivering them to the clients and athletes, tracking their progress, and it all lives in one place. My clients get their sessions on their phones. I see their progress, I get messages from them, and we are able to stay in constant contact and be able to track every single metric that I need. I spend less time on admin and more time actually coaching. Check out teambuildr.com, and if you use promo code PAChalkup all together, you get 30-day free trial and you get access to the AMS system.
Is it the one thing that fires me up?
Yep.
Um, Man, it's just the fact of like building rapport with guys. When you come into a new situation, new school, you have to get those guys going and see what gets them going, gets them fired up. And once you figure that out, which it can be challenging at times, once you figure that out, that's the most rewarding part for me, man. Just seeing guys like exceed all physical and mental limitations. I get a thrill out of that.
Nice. What's some things that you've kind of experienced in the 2 years at USC that have slowly changed throughout your time there into what is USC now?
Well, the thing is, I feel like just going back to building that rapport, I feel like that part was, the change that we needed. Just, having a standard and staying consistent on that standard and everybody in the building, just being empowered to hold people accountable. That's been the biggest thing. That's been the biggest change. And I feel like that's what we needed at USC because obviously the talent is going to come. You're going to get the guys that you pretty much want at USC. But the thing is, man, just having a standard and staying firm on that.
What are some ways that you hold people accountable and hold that standard throughout?
Oh, just reminding them, of their why. We talk about standards all the time, and we have a shirt. I like to wear this shirt. I have a gray one and a black one. It's standard over feelings. We preach that day in and day out, man. When you come out of that locker room, you leave your feelings in that locker room. Because at the end of the day, once you leave USC, the world is not going to give a damn about your feelings. So just remember your why, man, and don't let the people down that believe in you. So leave your feelings in the locker room. Get ready to work regardless of what may happen.
You also mentioned you were a director at D2 school. Now you're at Power 4 D1 school. What have you found is the differences in some of the how do they differ between each other?
Well, the difference, I'll probably say the biggest difference within the actual athletes is probably speed. The guys on this level have a different ability to accelerate, and I feel like that's where a lot of things start at. If you can't accelerate, nothing else matters. And these guys accelerate on a tad bit different level than the guys on the D2. And another one is probably obviously the resources. Most of my career I was limited on resources, but I feel like I have a great sense of ingenuity and figuring out how to get things done without having the resources that we have on this level. This level makes programming a lot easier in regards to having the resources that you need, man. And, just having an actual dietitian, at our disposal and multiple athletic trainers, man, that's very beneficial. And we don't really have that on that level.
Yeah. And so I love this, what you've just said with the imagination. And, when you do have minimal resources, imagination comes into a lot of what sort of the program is based on. Like if you don't have prowlers, you can make do with a barrel rope and a couple kettlebells.
Right.
How was sort of figuring something like that out, and how was that imagination kind of transferred over to now where you do have these resources, you do have all this with you? Are you still being able to like tap into the sort of the imagination and making it work even better for yourself? Today's episode is sponsored by Eccentric. You all know I'm a big fan of keeping training simple and effective, and flywheel training fits that perfectly. Now, I've been using Eccentric K-Box since 2021, and it's one piece of equipment, endless exercises, and resistance that adjust to you automatically. However much effort you put in is what you get out. No guessing the weight, no loading plates, just move. And the flywheel matches your effort perfectly. Check out the K-Box or the K-Pulley at the link in the description.
Yeah, I'd probably say, man, when it comes to like, let's say, you have a Vertimax machine, you have plenty of them, on this level, to where you can add some resistance with counter movement jumps or whatever the case may be. On a D2 level, you don't really have that. So things that I would do is I would put those bands around the bottom of the rack, flip it over one shoulder, then do the other for the other shoulder. And that provided me with the resistance I needed, and I still got the same effects. Here you have all this stuff at your disposal, but you always want to keep in the back of your mind, okay, what if we don't have this? How can we get this done? You know what I mean? You have to help your director if like he's thinking about something or something that we don't have. You bring up some of the stuff that you did prior to coming to a place like USC, and you can keep things rolling.
So this is I actually love what you've just said with the jumping. So there's an Olympic institution. If you want to dig down, you can go scroll through my page and you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an institution where have you seen those mechanical racks that sort of like lift for jump squatting?
The actual racks.
Yeah, so like so they've got like the safety spotters for the racks,
Mm-hmm.
but they automatically move depending on where the bar is.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. No, I
They're
haven't seen
sick.
that yet. That's dope.
But essentially, this organization only uses it for jump squatting.
Mm-hmm.
So like they'll just catch mid-air, and then you're able to drop down, and then the bar drops
Right.
itself. And that's like you can use that rack for so many things, but the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that this institution uses it for is simply jump
Jump
squatting.
squat. That's awesome. Yeah, I hadn't seen that yet. Man. I would like to see it.
I'll see if I can find it. But and again, when you have the resources, it's easy to like just do what you need with it, and that's
Yeah,
it.
do what you need, and that's it, man.
I'll try and find it. But if you could like sort of break down what week to week, month to month kind of looks for you guys, and what adaptations and sort of things are you chasing right now?
The thing is, like, when it comes to, what you're chasing, everybody's a little bit different. You have the fact, like, yes, we have these 5-star, 4-star athletes, whatever the case may be, and you would think that majority of them are proficient on certain lifts, right? Or a lot of them would have like a increased training age. That's not the case with all of them. And a lot of them aren't as proficient as other guys when they come into the building. So the biggest thing is just assessing all these guys and figuring out where their weaknesses are, and then attacking that. But collectively, man, you always want to in the beginning of the off season, you want to do what you can to like get these guys acclimated to how you do things and increase endurance, hypertrophy, whatever the case may be. And so one of the biggest things for us, man, is like having these guys go through what we call like eccentric training or whatever the case may be. Just with eccentric training, just having these guys maintain postural control while still generating force, which is what you want ultimately in the game of football, to be able to generate force at a faster rate and more often than the opponent does. So we do a lot of that in the beginning, and then we move on to like our strength training, whatever we decide to do with that. And then once we get ready, for spring ball, man, we kind of treat it like the in season, where you want to maintain what you built over the course of the all season, but you still want to see some type of strength gain somewhere. Because I just feel like you can never go wrong with building strength, man. Like the guys that are, the strongest, they have the biggest capacity to generate force, and that's just something that we firmly believe in at USC.
Yeah, and with the ability to sort of like so there's different obviously phases and different things you're preparing for.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that's like really crucial for the development of like these like beginning to eccentrics? Like you get freshmen in, like how are you sort of, for lack of better terms, baptizing them into then being able to go in with all the whole team after that?
The biggest thing, man, with freshmen when they come in, man, is getting them caught up to speed with everybody else in regards to like their strength, in regards to like their power output, how fast they can move the bar. Some of these guys come in, they're ready to go with the other guys, but some of the others, you have to like break everything down to show them how to properly do a power clean. You bring it up from the first pull, second pull, even teaching the catch. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing is just getting those guys acclimated to how you train at a place like USC. Getting everybody caught up, because at the end of the day, we depend on these guys to play. We depend on a lot of them to come in and be ready to roll, and you don't want them to like fall behind everybody else. So the biggest thing is just teaching them, technique, and increasing strength and size as fast as possible.
Yeah. So this is the video. So that's actually me there. So they move automatically.
Yeah. Wow. So it catches the bar at the highest point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And then so I'll actually show you because you might find this interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how much that machine actually costs. How much that rack costs.
Probably more than you want to know.
Right.
So you actually get your data from it too. You can see there. You've got cameras as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the one thing I do like about it though, once they're able to gather themselves, get in position for the actual jump, the bar jumps down to allow for like the counter movement. That is dope.
Yeah. So it's exactly that. It's trying to build.
So does it like whenever like you go into the propulsive phase of that jump, is that when they actually the rails actually go up, or is it at a point of takeoff when that happens?
So I think I'll show you the video again. So I mean we're here. So there's also strings there if you can see.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you. So you kind of have to dip down, and then it catches you. So as soon as you start exploding up, that's when the racks
Gotcha.
start to take off.
Gotcha.
It was fascinating. Well, one, the first jump that you do is the scariest jump you will ever do in your life. Because you don't know when that bar is coming or if it's not coming.
Exactly.
But like at the end, so I've actually freeze framed it in a perfect spot. So like when you're doing like your force plate testing, you'll be able to see like where you've dipped, where you've jumped, your sway and everything else. So there's a force plate underneath it as well. So like it measures everything from you.
Right.
So like your times to take off and everything else. It's like a really smart piece of kit.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Does it obviously probably measures displacement as well, right?
Yeah. So like the force rack, I think it might be valved. So like the actual force plate underneath is valved. So like exactly or
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
so it'll just measure everything valve measures, but then you've got that thing of this athlete's X body weight, but he's actually got
Right.
100 kilograms more on his back from the.
That's dope.
So with the sort of preparation to season, what's some things that you're currently, I mean, I guess you're currently off season, but what do you do to make sure that when that first game kicks in, they're at the best that they can be for starting the season? Because it's a long season too.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Man, when it comes to that, the biggest thing is like, we do all this sports science testing and all this and that. We have these catapult units to measure player load and all. Man, my biggest thing and what I really wish a lot of strength coaches would really hone in on is like attack and recovery, just as much as we attack the weight room and conditioning. Because man, like you have to recover. You have to recover. You have to stretch. Like you're gonna have these guys. The requirement is going to be to move through certain ranges of motions that their body not used to. So why not go ahead and optimize that range of motion every single day to where it helps optimize muscle growth, which is what we want anyway, right? So I just wish people would attack recovery a lot more, because some people feel like recovery is soft and all this and that. No, man, you only get one body. You have to take care of your body. Do whatever it takes to take care of your body, because like football is not a game where you're going to play a very long time. So do your best to increase that longevity by taking care of your body instead of placing so much stress on it day in and day out.
So what sort of avenues are you looking at for them to recover more efficiently?
So, we can't watch everything that the guys do, right? So yeah, they have like specific recovery times, with the ATs or whatever the case may be. Then hopefully they're doing some stuff at home. But man, you have to incorporate that recovery within your lift. Do it within, designate 15 to 20 minutes post lift for recovery. Or you can like do some type of mobility stuff in between lifts, in between sets on certain lifts. So that's probably one of the things I've done over the course of my career, man. Just, designating time for recovery because I don't know what they're doing outside of the building. I don't know, how long they're actually staying for treatment. So to make sure that like I'm doing my, basically my due diligence in helping these guys recover, I'm going to implement it in my lift. Because I feel like if you do that, your strength and conditioning staff, they should be good enough to get them caught up if there's something you feel like you're missing.
So what are some strategies in lifts that you're doing, A, to build them, and then B, to set them up for recovery?
Right. So let's say, with the back squat, for instance, right? The back squat is one of those that's going to, stress the hip flexors as well as like the adductors. And it's going to be a period where you probably don't want to squat as much, like in season or during fall camp, and you still want to attack those muscle groups. So we would do a lot of stretches for the hip flexors as well as the hip adductors, and just incorporate that with, let's say, if we're just working unilaterally, doing like a split squat, right? We'll do what we call like a physical ball hip squeeze. 3 sets of that, hold it for about 10 to 20 seconds, or something like let's say back foot elevated hip flexor stretch. You could do that like during the priming period of your lift too. So I would implement that stuff with certain lifts, man, just to get it, because I know that if you're not able to like squat like you want, which is going to help strengthen those muscle groups, you have to attack it another way.
100%. And with sort of this accessory work that you do, is there like a go-to like protocol for the athletes?
A protocol for like the accessory work, or just like, yeah. So it goes back to like our testing. Just testing like hip adductor strength, hamstring strength. We test these guys quite often, man. And like, obviously if there's like let's say 15% or greater, like asymmetry, like you can come up with a number or whatever you want to do. But like, just for me, I'll say about 15%. If there's an asymmetry between both limbs, now I put them in a hamstring protocol, to where they're gonna do twice a week hamstring protocol post lift. You're gonna do that with me or whoever it is on the staff that's designated to do it, until like we test again like that following week, and we get that asymmetry down to like, let's say, close to 5%. Then that's when you pretty much graduate out of that. So with the hamstring protocol, man, the way I attack it, obviously I attack it the same way we do things at the beginning of the winter. Isometric first, right? Isometric, then probably go eccentric, then concentric, and then when I feel like they're powerful enough, we can do some oscillatory stuff. So that's the way I approach it, man. And and sometimes guys graduate out of it before we get to all that oscillatory or general concentric stuff. Some guys, they improve strength just by doing the isometric. You know what I mean? Or some, improve strength and get that asymmetry down by doing some of the eccentric stuff. So it may not even take all of that, but that's just the way that, I look at it and attack it that way, man.
So this is an interesting conversation that everyone has different opinions, and I really like to talk about that. So it's asymmetry percentages, and what is a comfortable percentage of asymmetries that you're okay enough for them to continue as is. So like you kind of touched on 15%, 5%. What is that percentage that you're comfortable for them to continue as the program says, or when you pull them back a little bit?
So when I pull them out of the protocol, or is that what you're asking?
No, like pull them back as in like limit the amount of load and stress that's going through because of those asymmetries.
Yes, I just feel like you still need to train both limbs like equally. I just feel like with the asymmetry deal, if it's greater than 15%, that whichever one that is that falls, within that 15% or greater, that's when you need to do a little bit more work on. But like in regards to the lift and what we do regarding the hamstrings, you still got to train them, because you don't really know how that injury, happened or could happen. A lot of people, blame it on sprinting, but there's some issues that can happen with sprinting. Could be like the playing surface or damn potholes or something in the turf or whatever, holes in the turf. But like, so you just want to account for anything that could happen, man. So you always want to train both of them equally still, in my opinion. People may not agree, but like I'm still going to train both limbs equally, but I'm going to do a little bit extra in the accessory work to help like get that asymmetry down to a point to where we can get these guys rolling because the coaches want them to go and they have to be able to go. So just getting the asymmetry down, I'm a big believer in like 7% or lower, and then we can go.
So I always have this principle of programming should be a funnel, right? You should
Mm-hmm.
start big muscle, work your way down, obviously. But then also like start doing joint leg bilateral movements, and then
Mm-hmm.
as your accessories tie in, you go single, you go, focusing on your stabilizing muscles, like
Mm-hmm.
really challenge the structural elements of that joint, that structure, to make sure that, because so the thing for me is like sport isn't predictable, right? you're going
Mm-hmm. Right.
Your body is going to have to adapt to angles that we probably can't train in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So my role is to prepare you for being able to handle those uncommon movements. So if I
Right.
strengthen your stabilizer muscles, and if
Mm-hmm.
you get caught up here, you're going to be all right. It might
Right.
suck a little bit, but you're going to be all right.
Exactly.
So it's like I always love this conversation of asymmetries, because as important as they are to equal up, but like their sport is also uneven. Like you're going to be better at one side as opposed to the other.
Yeah.
Like,
Always. Yeah.
I mean, depending on which side of the line you are, one side could be stronger than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So like again, asymmetries are a thing in sport, but like how much and how comfortable are we to change too much?
Right.
Because
And
then,
that's always the hard part, man. That's always the hard part, man. And I just feel like some people, want to get a little bit too creative with certain things. Just like, when you talked about the stabilizers, increasing stability around the joint. That stuff is extremely important, right? But like one thing that I've learned also, man, like if you focus so much on the stability aspect of it, you could lose a little bit of that mobility. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Whereas if you do too much mobility, you can lose some of the stability around that joint. So like you said, it's very difficult to figure out like what more of which one you need. So that's why I say, man, still train them equally. If you're going
Mhm.
to implement mobility, you have to train both extremities the same way. The same thing with stability. So it gets tricky, man. It gets tricky in how you train. But like I agree with what you're saying, man. That's a difficult deal, man. And everybody have their own ideas and philosophies. And my thing is, whatever works for you, then you use it.
Exactly. So there's a S&C coach out in Switzerland, and she deals a lot with like gymnasts, divers. She does a lot with like dancers, very extremely flexible people.
Mm-hmm.
And her thing is like, again, I don't need to work on the mobility. That's taken care of. So what she's talking a lot about is like, how do I strengthen the end phase of their movements?
Hmm.
So like if they're fully extended, that's
Right.
great, they can get up there. But how
Mm-hmm.
strong are they here?
Right, increasing the stability at that point.
So like even if it's
Yeah,
like hyperflexion in the knees, most dancers, most you know gymnasts will be hypermobile.
right.
Like at the end range, how do I strengthen that to a point where yes, they can get there, but now they can do and access more strength from that phase. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. So you've kind of touched on it too. It's like it starts with a lot of isometrics,
Yeah.
and then goes into a lot of eccentrics,
Mm-hmm.
and then starts going into more like strength building in those phases. Like how
Right.
much can I push from that end range? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
so when I spoke to her, I was kind of like, yeah, like that's quite fascinating, because like we never really talk about end range strength. We talk about close quarters and we talk about strength and power. But like
Mm-hmm.
I played rugby all my life.
Right.
At most times tackles aren't nice and close.
Mm-hmm.
They're out here, they're out wide. Like you're having to spread yourself
Right.
to get that tackle. So like
Exactly.
it's kind of developing from there. So like first phase isometrics, second phase eccentrics, third
Mm-hmm.
those eccentrics. Fourth, can I get some ballistic movement in there?
Right. Yeah.
Like, can I be explosive here
Mm-hmm.
so that when it does come to react quick, I can do that in a strength and a powerful way that
Right.
everything stays intact and
Exactly.
I'm able to execute what I need.
Yeah. I like that a lot, man. Because like I said, it definitely gets tricky when these joints go into these uncompromised positions and you don't know what those positions actually look like. So you have to factor in a whole lot of different stuff and put these people in like different angles and just go from there. Like I just feel like there'll never be a perfect solution for any of that stuff, but you got to go with what you go with, man.
So the thing is as well is like I mean we've all heard that there's a million ways to get to Rome,
Right.
but it also doesn't help like it doesn't hurt to have different like maps to Rome, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where I think I get really fascinated with this industry and speaking to different people because not everyone's got the same system. So it's
Yeah.
like how can we explain our system in a way that it gives people enough nuggets
Mm-hmm.
and start piecing their own program together.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like when I've got sort of like you in here, that coach I mentioned in Switzerland, like you're probably really good at strength building and power. She's
Mm-hmm.
really good at, end range strength. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
where can we learn from each other and sort of explore these
Mm-hmm.
areas
Exactly.
where two realms are sort of coming together?
That's why, like, I'm real big on collaborating with people, man. You know what I mean? Just figuring out what like the next person is doing, and that's something that I want to implement in my program, which I feel like would take my guys to the next level. By all means, I'm going to do it. So yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. Because like I hadn't even really thought about that in range strength like you talk about. We all know about like joints being placed in these uncompromised positions, and like how do we figure out to create stability at that point, or being able to like absorb or counteract force in an awkward position.
Yeah, the perfect example is like Patrick Mahomes, and like you see him like doing these backbend twists and like S&C training, and you're like,
Hmm.
what the fuck is he doing that? That's silly. But then
Right.
you sometimes see him in those exact compromising positions when
Hmm.
he's trying to fire that ball through, and again, it's one of those things where like sport specific, just do your sport, right?
Hmm.
Just do your
Yeah.
sport. That's as sport
Exactly.
specific as it can be. But like, at what point do we need to explore different angles to get them to be able to perform their sport?
Is there something too where like, you potentially feel like when it comes to sports specific stuff or skill acquisition stuff, collaborating with like that position coach or whoever it is to talk about some of the drills and look at some of the movements. I kind of feel like strength coaches need to do a little bit more of that as well. You know what I mean?
Mm, 100%. I think it's fascinating because like we can definitely get ourselves into silos on just like
Hmm.
I know everything I need to,
Right.
like not speak to anyone else.
Hmm.
You kind of mentioned something as well, and I kind of want you to explain a little bit further. You talk a lot about like graduating out of the program or graduating out of the protocol. Can you explain what you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is graduating out of the protocol, just like decreasing the asymmetry, from week to week. So you're gonna test every week. You're gonna test every week. And I sit down and I talk with our sports science director, and once we get those tests, like I think it's Thursday or Friday, I can't remember exactly when the test is, but it's weekly. And so if you're at like 22%, the next week you're at like 19%, you're going to stay in there another week. If we can get down to about, I think it's under 10, that's when you graduate out of the hamstring protocol. So we test them week to week, man, just to see where they are. Because the thing is, you got to have that data. You got to have that data, man, and you have to be able to present that stuff to coaches when they ask about it, because they're going to ask, "What are you doing?" This kid has had this same asymmetry for 2 or 3 weeks. Nothing has changed. No, we keep track of everything, man. So we're gonna test every week until we get to a point where like they're under that 10% or whatever the number is. I can't remember exactly. And then you know, we talk to them about like now we don't have a fear of they going out running and placing too much torque on their hamstring and something bad happening. We're comfortable in having those conversations with the sport coaches, you know what I mean? So just testing everybody every week until you get those asymmetries down, and that's when they graduate out of the hamstring protocol.
What tests and metrics are important for you to look at when you're building this program?
What metrics, like what testing metric?
Yeah, like what tests and what metrics are you specifically looking at that's like important for you to make decisions on their performance?
So like the node board test, we're going with the ISO strength. That's one of the biggest ones for me.
Is there a reason?
Is there a reason?
Yeah.
Simply because like with the ISO test, obviously when you think about ISOs, man, you want the muscle to contract without moving through a certain range of motion, without moving through a particular range of motion and being able to generate force. So I feel like that's probably the safest option. You know what I mean? For the athletes, and that's one that I really feel like we probably going to stick with.
Yeah. What's your running exposures like for your bigs, smalls, and skills?
Running exposure, that's probably one, man, where I feel like that'll be probably a better question for our sports science guy, because I can't remember in particular, like what our deal is when it comes to like running exposure. I don't know off the top of my head, so that would probably be a better question, for him, because I would rather him talk about it because he's more so the professional in that area.
Yeah. With you're kind of talking about like this arc of like you've got your eccentrics, your isometrics.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in season do you start rebuilding these shields as they go on in terms of like if you think the first game is probably the freshest they'll be, and then
Mm-hmm.
that armor will slightly get chinked as they go through their season. How do
Yeah.
you top up these sort of metrics as they go through their season?
Yeah, so like with that, man, you always think about like their top speed and all that. You don't want them to lose any of their top speed, so you still want to, have them reach a certain percentage of their top speed throughout the season. I don't want to say too much, but like, you always want them to reach that. Maybe let's say if they don't reach a certain percentage within 21 days, have them do it at practice. You know what I mean? And still, you still want to test throughout the season too with the hamstring strength. You test everybody, and then if somebody falls within that 15% or greater, then we're still going to do the hamstring protocol in season. This is a year-round thing. What I'm going to do. When it comes to like the speed, man, if you don't train something, you lose it. You lose it faster than you gain it. So the thing is, man, you gotta expose them to that max V or close to, let's say, 90% or greater. Because the thing is, man, you train fast, you play fast. That's just something that we believe in, man. So just making sure like they can reach that certain percentage of their top end speed or max velocity, whatever you want to call it, within a certain time frame, and stay consistent with that. Just make sure you monitor that every week or every 2 or 3 weeks, however you want to do it in your program. I think that helps out a lot.
100%. I think it's about like in season's a weird one because like you're not supposed to be able to build, but like
Right.
if we do our job properly, like it's always constantly like tapping into different things and new things and like having the ability and flexibility to okay, we need to watch sort of hamstring strength, right? Just an
Mhm.
example, 'cause that's usually something that goes quite frequently. Like, how can we add enough adaptations in there so that they can progress throughout their season, as opposed to like season comes, we tailor off everything, playing becomes really important, but like the preparatory work for playing is just maintenance.
Yeah, so man, I'm also a big believer too. Like during the course of the season, like after games, and what I've done, when I was a director, man, is like those flush runs, just having them, after the game, just to get some of that stuff out of the system, man, because you got to get ready for practice again in like a day or so. So just getting everything that they go through over the course of the game, getting that out of them, and then, like I said earlier, just making sure you test them to see if they can reach that certain percentage of their speed, like every couple of weeks. And if you're seeing that like they haven't reached it with the catapult report and all that, that's when okay, man, this guy, we got to get him going. We got to get him exposed to like running fast or near maximum speed again. So you just always want to monitor that stuff every single day with your catapult reports. And you know, I just feel like with that you won't be looking crazy in the end. You know what I mean? Or something bad happening in week 2, week 3, or when you get ready to play a damn Ohio State in a week or so. So,
So from everything that you post and whatnot, I can also see that you're quite an avid reader on how to develop different aspects of performance.
yeah.
Is it something that you've read recently that like you've been trying to see how you can implement it?
Yeah, man. So I've been reading this textbook, and I'm almost done with it now, man. I stayed up late last night reading. It's called Developing Power by the NSCA, and I've done a lot of things over the course of my career, man. And like I don't feel like you have to be married to a specific way of programming. Yeah, that book. Yep. So I hadn't opened a multi-directional sport book, but like you don't have to be married to a specific form of training. My thing is I want to read up on all of them, and if there's something that I want to implement in my program, then I take pieces of that. Right. So one thing that like my mind just goes all over the place a lot of times when I think about programming. And I was just thinking about sprinting, and like I've thought about, anti-rotation or anti-rotational exercises, but like not to this point or not to the extent of like it can potentially affect speed training. You know what I mean? Just like using anti-rotational exercises to decrease the risk of like lateral flexion. You know what I mean? Because you want the torso to remain upright, especially when they transition into max velocity. So just reading up on stuff like that, man, and then incorporating certain exercises that I feel can help me in that area. Or like the French contrast method, man. I'm a big fan of that one too. I only use it for about 2 weeks. So if I know, okay, that we're gonna test the week prior to spring ball starting, I would take like 3 weeks before the start date of practice, the first day of practice, to implement that French contrast training because I know in like that week prior to spring ball I'm gonna test that week. Right? So I would do a couple of weeks of like the French contrast method just to see if I can see improvements in like the vertical jump for our guys, see how explosive they are, because I want to see what that muscle can give me. I want to see what can you get in there and grind, man? Can you go through this heavy compound movement, and then a plyometric exercise, and then a lighter load on the compound movement, as well as an accelerative like plyometry or whatever you call it. Do that for a couple of weeks. It's going to be extremely taxing. And so with that, I back off some of the other stuff in the lift because the primary focus is what we can get out of the French contrast method for a couple of weeks. Then we test, and then we roll it in the spring ball. So it's worked out a lot for me, man. I've done it in 21, 22, and 23. I also did it with my pro day guys that I had when I was a director, man. I saw some really, really great results in that. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, I'm a big reader.
I like to speak to Tim Sukamel quite a lot because one,
Mm-hmm.
he's done a lot of research in the industry, but he's developed this system, and it's essentially fitting athletes where they are. And if you think like of a bell curve,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's realizing, okay, your triphasic where it's like isometric, eccentric starts on one end, and say like you've got your French contrast at the other end, where it's like so you go from very isometric driven programs, and then you've got your very explosive ballistic type
Mm-hmm.
programs at the other end, and it's kind of like, okay, where does certain athletes fit in this bell curve,
Right.
matching them. Okay, so and it kind of goes back to that bucket filling. Okay, like this lineman, he's fucking strong as an ox, but
Mm-hmm.
he's lacking explosivity. So like,
Right.
where of this bell curve does he fit? So we'll put him
Mm-hmm.
at like French contrast. And then if we've got like our speed guys where all they have is fucking speed, but they're lacking some of that strength to be able to, handle themselves on the field, they could
Mm-hmm.
probably go a little bit conjugate, where it's like
Right.
it's focusing on that strength
Mm-hmm.
power phase. So it's like that to me was a very interesting
Yeah.
conversation with him.
That's awesome, man. And then like I think about that too. Just hearing you say that, like I think about like um what is the different explosive power and reactive power. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like a lot of the skill guys gonna have more reactive power, and like the bigs gonna have the explosive power because it takes them a while to like get off the ground versus the skill guys who are very reactive. So what like would it be beneficial to go French contrast with like the skills and some of the big skill, and then maybe going like contrast training or complex training with the bigs, so it's not that many movements and it's not that taxing on them. Like I think about a whole lot of stuff like that, man. But like I didn't have the manpower when I was at D2. But now that I'm at Power Four, yeah, we can implement that type of stuff. Just thinking about that part of it.
Yeah. What's something that you've tried recently that you've seen great results that you want to dig into a little bit more?
Well, Not anything that I've tried, because honestly, I hadn't, really tried anything since, I was a director. Mainly, I just, obviously as the associate director, yeah, you help with programming and all, but I probably say one thing I've seen, and I got to think on that one, that I probably want to use going forward. I tried APRE with baseball back in 21 when I was a D2 guy, but that only lasted for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then I got a chance to really see it when I was at K State, under our director, Coach True, as well as like our associate director at the time, Coach Ray. We did it with our developmental guys. And man, we saw some crazy strength gains with the APRE. So that's something that going forward, whenever that time comes when I'm a director again, maybe implement that with my developmental guys. I just don't want to do it with the older guys. You know what I mean? Because of like all the volume, volume does a whole lot more damage to the joints than intensity does.
100%. So I'll tell you a funny story. It was when I was at college, I had an S&C coach, and he did a lot of APRE with me. I kind of forgot about it, and then I meet Brian Mann, and sort of like I have dinner with him. Like we talk for a while. It's me, Brian Mann, Coach Ron McKeefery. Like we're all just having dinner. I just like we had a good dinner. We posted a picture together, and my old coach messages me. Is like, do you know how much research I've done on Brian Mann? Like your program was Brian Mann. I was like, shit.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. Yeah,
But it's
that's
kind of
man.
that thing where like again we're all learning from each other, and that's what's fucking
Oh yeah.
awesome. It's it's I love it. I love it because it's like you never know where you're going to get your next nugget. And
Exactly, man.
I know the CSCCA was just this past weekend.
Hmm.
I was actually speaking to Kenny Minich just now prior to this call, and she's like, "It's really just a hangout. Like we just get to meet
Yeah.
like our old staff or buddies or something, and we just get to
Hmm.
catch up."
Yeah. That's it, man. And but yeah, I didn't get to actually make it to that one this year because I spent some time with the Los Angeles Rams.
Mm.
So I'm definitely going next year. I'm excited, man, because like there's a lot of these former GAs I've had, and I would like to see them, see how they're doing. You can always call them, text them, but there's nothing like seeing people face to face. You know what I mean?
100%.
Especially people that have like helped you get to where you are. So,
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, like the jump to D2 to D1 is a lot in terms of performance. But from what I've heard, I think there's a better progression of athletes now because of that. And the
hmm
NIL is like the recruitment isn't going so much towards high schools, it's more going to like, okay, what's happening at D3, D2,
right,
and we get
exactly.
somewhat prepared athletes to then come into our roster. What's your take on that?
Part of me, man, I feel sorry for a lot of high school kids. I also feel sorry for a lot of like JUCO kids too. As a guy that was a former D2 head strength coach, man, I've had several guys leave from D2 to go Group of Five, to go Power Five. I recently just had one get drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a wide receiver that I had for 2 years at Valdosta State. He made the jump to Georgia State, did really well at Georgia State. Now he got drafted in the third round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I also had one who served as a long snapper for me when I was at Valdosta State. He was a long snapper for me, man, and did really well, man. Great kid. Then he transferred. I think he went to Kennesaw State for a year, and then he went to UVA his very last year, and he ended up, signing as a free agent with an NFL team after the draft, man. So it's awesome. I love it because I feel like there's a lot of guys on that level that could play. They just didn't have the resources in high school, didn't get the same exposure in high school. And programs like a Valdosta State or Ferris State, West Florida, whoever, can help them get looked at by those schools and give them the opportunity that a lot of them deserves. I'm happy for them, but I'm also like I have a sense of pity when it comes to like the JUCO guys and the high school kids that don't get those same looks.
Do you think from a preparation to perform, it's a better system where they go from like high school to Division 3 or 2 to then graduate up to that D1 where they've had a year or two in still some weight rooms, still under some decent coaching to then go up to that Division One, where now they're getting exposed to a lot more resources.
So how do I feel about it?
No, do you think from a preparatorial standpoint, it's a better system?
Is this a backward system?
Better.
Oh, better system. Man, to be honest with you, there are a lot of guys that I know, FCS head strength coaches, D2 head strength coaches that are better than a lot of guys on this level. So I feel like I was one of them, not to toot my own horn. I definitely feel like I was one of them. And there's some guys that I know, like the guy at Harding, for instance. He's one of the best I know. Coach Greg, great strength coach. The head strength coach down at West Florida, he's another one that's great. The guy at Ferris State, obviously, man, who's won 4 out of the last 5 D2 natties, he's pretty damn good too. But I wouldn't say it's a better system. I'll just say when you have all these different resources at your disposal, it makes it look like that. You know what I mean? It makes it look as if like these programs are better or have better coaches. That's not the case. You have some really elite strength coaches at like FCS or HBCUs and all that are just as good as these guys that are on the Power 4 level.
Yeah,
I feel like it's a lot harder to do it on the lower level than it is on this level.
I get that. Yeah, because obviously the NIL has changed how a lot of things shape out across there. So I've always wondered, like, from that standpoint, is more mature players coming through in terms of exposures that they've had. But then again, like there's some great high school coaches that I know personally. If they're getting exposed that early to great coaching, when they get to the D1 standpoint, that's just a continuation.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a continuation, and it's going to work out well for the kid. You know what I mean? And I appreciate a lot of high school strength coaches because we have a lot of guys that come in, man, that are very proficient. They understand structure. They know what accountability is. And, man, these kids, they'll call you out on it, man. They'll call you out on it. So, yeah, man, I have a lot of respect for a lot of coaches on the high school level.
What's one piece of advice that you would give new strength coaches or people wanting to come into this industry?
A piece of advice I would give to people, do the exact opposite of what I did, in my tenure, like get out and network more. Older guys, so I'm stubborn, I'm stuck in my ways. But now that I'm seeing that there are people that are willing to help you succeed in this profession. Man, get out and network early, man, because I was in my own way. I wanted to do things my way. And, it worked, but like it was gonna stop at some point. You know what I mean? But now I'm out now. I'm networking with people, getting a chance to do a podcast like this. You know what I mean? So just get out and meet people, man. Because at the end of the day, you don't know everything about strength and conditioning. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's head coach is different, and how you want to run a program. So get out and learn from everybody else, see how they do things, and then mix all that stuff together and figure out how you want to run your program when it's time to run your program.
I'm going to ask a question, but I want the end result as opposed to the. So, not necessarily what's the biggest mistake you've made, but what's something you've learned from like a perceived mistake that you made.
I think one of the things that I need to get better at, some of the mistakes I probably made was whenever something happened just based off like what I've seen with the kid and my experience with the kid, and somebody else tell me something, I will automatically back what somebody else said, just like judging the kid. I was guilty of that for a very long time. But now, man, and the way things are, man, you got to figure out like there's always 3 sides to a story, right? It's this person's side, then the truth. You know what I mean? So just being able to seek to understand first before jumping off the top rope on people. Because I'm real big on jumping off the top rope on any and everybody. And yeah, man, I got to get out of that because like at the end of the day, man, like, sometimes these kids are going to play, both ends against the middle, but like sometimes we do it too as professionals. You know what I mean? And so just like seeking to understand the situation first, getting all the details before I get to a point where I want to judge people, because it's not right.
I mean, I quite like how you said that though, seek to understand. And it's kind of like, so like at that stage, I hope you don't get a lot of, it's like, oh, I can't do this. Like when an athlete or a client says to you, oh, I can't. And like, I'm always very intentional. If someone says that to me before they can get their next word in, I said, yeah, you can't do it yet.
Oh,
And
you were
it's
saying
like,
that they can't do something?
yeah, so like,
Yeah.
some people to me say, oh, I can't jump this height. I was like, yeah, you can't do it yet. You'll
Right.
get there, but you won't get there if you just like limit yourself. So
Man,
like
I
I
ain't gonna lie,
really
man. Ain't is a word that I just like. I don't tolerate and haven't tolerated, but um, it's gotten to a point now where I'll tell people, or tell guys, hey man, I don't want to hear that word. The thing is, man, you don't. Do you trust your body? Do you trust your ability? Have you tried it yet? And so that helps out a lot, man, in getting people to like exceed those physical and mental limitations that they sometimes have. Just get them to actually try it, man, and not being afraid, pretty much. Get out of their comfort zone. So, yeah, man, like I don't like that word
mm,
at all.
like I always say, like winning happens outside the box.
Hmm.
It's just outside that, and like
Yeah,
a lot of my programs, I'm pushing people to just outside that box. And like it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to
yeah.
suck. But like I
Hmm.
wouldn't program anything you can't do.
Exactly. Yep, I agree 100%.
In terms of like the advice that you've kind of mentioned, I really like that seek to understand because it gives you that option of like, okay, I know this perhaps I didn't do well.
Hmm.
Like let me learn from it. And I think that's kind of why I hate I can't. It's for that same reason. Like there's no other step from that. Like
Yeah,
when you say you can't, that's it. You've limited yourself. You put yourself in
exactly.
that box.
You're already defeated mentally and physically. You know what I mean? And no, we can't tolerate that.
For
Can't
sure.
tolerate that, man.
What's something you're looking forward to, like in this coming year, performance wise, for your athletes?
The biggest thing for me, man, is like I get a joy out of watching these kids be successful, man, and reap the rewards of their hard work. So the biggest thing for me, man, I have high expectations for every team that I'm a part of every year, and I think we're going to do really, really well. And I just want to see how they handle success. When people start telling you, "Oh man, you're good, you're undefeated, man. You can beat this team, beat that team." I want to see how they handle that. See if like it gets to their head and the egos go through the roof, or if they're gonna be what I think. The young men that we're building, they're gonna be locked in, focused, not worried about what other people say because other people don't go through what we go through on a daily basis, and lock in and get things done with your brother. So I'm excited to see that.
Nice. Coach, I really appreciate you for coming on today and spending some time with me. If you could let people know where they can find you or reach out and ask some more questions.
Yeah. I don't even know my Twitter handle and my Instagram. I don't even know that stuff. I know, but yeah, that's where they can find me, man. Reach out, ask questions. I'm all for that, man, because like now, like I said, man, I'm getting better with like networking and being willing to help others. Because now I've been around people that are willing to help me in my career. Finally, I got to pay it forward, man. I should have been paying it forward this entire time, but yeah, hopefully they can forgive me for my mistakes.
I think it's always about the learning experience as a coach. Like, I've definitely thought I was the dog's bollocks when it came to like programming. But like
Hmm.
I got around some coaching and I was like, I actually know fuck all about programming. Like
Right.
so one thing I've always said is like I'm in this industry to make it better. Whatever that better may be might look
Hmm.
different to other people. Like for me, like I love to reach out to coaches who perhaps don't post much or don't,
Hmm.
speak a lot about the industry, but like I see
Yeah.
some of their training and some of their philosophies, or I hear different bits and bobs about them, and I'm like,
Mhm.
that's a really fucking interesting person to speak to. So
Right.
like anyone, as you know yourself, like if I have a guest on, I'm reaching out to them personally.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm making sure to see what they've got going on to like be able to speak to them about it. So
Right.
like I'm always intentional on trying to put people on who perhaps need to be listened to a little bit more.
Hmm.
Follower counts, badges, I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't care about any of that stuff either, man. Yeah, that
Like
shit means nothing to me. So,
I had an interesting conversation with Donnie Mabe, and it was around how to look at the current position you're in and how to optimize that for where you want to go. So like
right.
his advice was like whatever logo you have in your top, pretend like it's your end goal. So like
Hmm.
in some coaches, USC might be like the creme de la creme, right?
Right.
But they're at like a small town in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Not a big weight room. They're seeing all the sports. It's just them. But like if
Mm-hmm.
they see that logo as a USC logo, that's going to transfer over. Like kids are going to pick up that like coach loves his job and coach is here for that job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that's what I'm interested in. It's like I don't care if you're like 1 year into S&C, if you're like 50 years in S&C. Like
Mm-hmm.
what are we pushing? Like what's happening?
Exactly. What can I learn from you? You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
That's
So,
where yeah, this podcast has helped a lot in that where it's like I now see like coaches that I've had on really early on that like I was their first podcast, like go on bigger podcasts, do
right.
speaking engagements, like really getting themselves out there. And it's like that's fucking sick to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. My thing is too, like I was one of those guys that, I feel like my programming was like elite programming, which a lot of us feel that way, but at the end of the day, man, what I had to realize was it doesn't matter how great you are when it comes to programming. If you don't have the right culture in your program and it's not in line with what the head coach wants, nobody's seeing eye to eye, you're going to fail because the kids can see the difference when people are not on the same page. So that's the thing, man. I feel like Coach Cos, he always said, culture trumps strategy. So I'm a big believer in that now, man. Yes, I want to be like solid or elite or whatever you want to call it at programming, but I also want to be elite at building the proper culture to help my head coach win. So
Nice. No, I really appreciate you, and it was awesome getting to know the program and what you're building across there.
yeah, man. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. Peace.
All right.